So we're just out today. We're at Dalkeith Country Park at the start of February, and we're just having a walk over some of the horse pastures and seeing how they've come through the winter. It's a really good time of year to try and evaluate what you've got at the moment and also try and make some plans for the future. They can have a really hard life. Some of the pony paddocks, they're used for housing at times 365 days of the year. They're used as a feed source, and they're also used somewhere for them to play on and get ridden round. So there's a lot of weight going on them. There's on very small hooves, and that can cause damage. The first thing I would always do is I would look into the fertility of the fields, and it's as long as you've not applied any fertiliser or organic manures, you can really do that throughout the whole year. But it's nice to do it now, and then you can get a bit of a plan together and decide what you're going to do come the spring. It's a crop at the end of the day, and we're looking for similar aspects to what we would with other crops. You'd want a good pH in the range of 6.2 to about 6.5, and you'd look for pHs at P's and K's about index 2. The next thing to do is really to have a walk around your paddock and try and take in all the different areas to get a general feel of the grass cover, and then also to look specifically at smaller areas and try and work out exactly what you've got. It's very key to take into account any broadleaf weeds, and we'd of course want to treat them if there's any broadleaf weeds, and also have a look at what grasses are actually there. As a general rule of thumb, we want about 70% sown productive grasses. If we are below 50%, you'd be looking at doing a full reseed, and if we were in the range of 50 to 70%, you'd get away with just doing an oversow. So we've come into the field, we've evaluated the sward, and kind of got the idea that it needs some improvement, but it's trying to decide if we're going to do a full reseed or if we're going to do an oversow. Now, in most cases, an oversow is probably going to be the most appropriate and cheapest option. Generally, there's not that many spare acres, and if we did a full reseed, we're going to have to rest it. We're going to have to plough the field, we're going to have to power harrow it, we're going to have to roll it, sow it, and then roll it again. Now, given the demands that a horse is going to place on this new reseed, it could be 12 months until that is really back into full production, and unless you have a lot of acres spare where you can really rest the field, it's probably not going to be beneficial to do a full reseed. Now, a far easier solution would be to go in and try establishing new, more productive grasses in amongst what is already there. Now, I'd have an eye on this in the springtime, and I would certainly get in around March and April time, and I would give it an initial harrow to try and knock out a lot of the weed grasses, a lot of the thatch, and try and open up the soil. And then when conditions allow, and now conditions are absolutely fine really from May through until the start of August. What we're wanting is a good soil temperature of around 8 to 10 degrees, and we're also wanting plenty of moisture in the soil. So we'd go in, you'd like to go in with either a Einbach grass harrow, or on a small scale you could just broadcast it on and give it a light harrow afterwards, and then you'd have to give it a roll straight after. What you'd want to minimise at this time is any fertiliser going on just before or just after sowing, and you'd want to make sure that you had either grazed the existing sward down tight, or you'd give an initial cut straight before. Now, you can even put animals back on for about 3 or 4 days directly after you've sown it, and they help to keep down that older grass and give the new grass a chance to establish. Now, In an ideal world, if we get good growing conditions, you'd be hoping to get the horses back on in around 10 to 12 weeks. So one of the main things is to try and decide what type of grass mixture you're going to put in the field, and a lot of that depends on what you're going to use it for. So some of the mixes are better if you're just going to graze them, and some of them are better if you're maybe going to try and get a cut of hay off it. As a general rule of thumb, you'd be looking for a high percentage of perennial diploid ryegrasses in the mix. Now, the perennial diploid, they tiller a lot more than like the tetraploids, which means they give you a good ground cover, and they'll firm things up and they'll stand the heavier grazing. I'd also look at an inclusion of creeping red fescue. I'd also put some smooth stalk meadowgrass in there, and I'd also put some timothy in there as well. You'd want to look after these swards going forward, and as general principles, and we'd never want them grazed too tight. We never want the stalking rates to get too high, and we always want to be able to give it a rest if need be, especially if it's in adverse weather. Keep an eye on your fertility, top up any grass, and don't ever be too hard on them, and you should have a good, hard-wearing, performing equestrian paddock. Thank you.